Greetings and salutations, everyone. I hope everyone is still doing well, and welcome to tonight's middle of the night bonus upload. Wow, guys, I just got done recording tomorrow's upload, and I can tell you something, that it is information shared from two people that worked with or for our government, and it is some of the most terrifying information on super soldier program, cryptids, reptilian, and deep underground military bases. Almost 2 hours of terrifying, true information. And you know that old adage where they say truth is scarier than fiction. Well, yeah, it really is. And the creator of that truth and that terror is none other than the the people that we are told to trust. So anyway, guys, right now I've got one heck of a middle of the night bonus upload to share with you. Very terrifying place, very terrifying experience. Before we get into it, a couple links. As you know, I rely on Patreon, PayPal, channel membership, and the merch to help the channel to continue to grow and go. Links to Patreon, PayPal, and channel membership is in the description below. Merch displayed directly under the video. Also, Dogman Frightening Encounters, Volume 1 through 3, the audiobook versions. They were written and researched by Tom Lyons, narrated and produced by me, Jeff Nadolny. Those audiobooks are available on Audible, Amazon, and iTunes, links to which are also in the description as well. And finally, last but definitely not least, if you'd really like to help support this channel to continue to grow and go, simply subscribe. It does not cost you a cent. Click that like button, takes half a second. If you don't want to miss out on any of the informative uploads I put out daily, click that bell icon, and folks, please leave a comment. Why? Well, because all these things, they really do help this channel to continue to grow and go, and folks, they really do help and matter. Now, everyone, I've taken far too much of your time. Let's jump in to this middle of the night bonus upload, shall we? Stay out of Mammoth Cave National Park. This happened in Mammoth Cave National Park. If you believe in cryptids, that is, I'll leave that for you all to decide. Names and dates have been changed to protect the identity of the individual. I have always loved the woods. Ever since I was a small child, I've found more comfort in them than anywhere else. It wasn't until my adult life that this changed. It all started on a normal camping trip during a cold November weekend. Most people would have canceled the trip due to it recently raining, and with a high of 37 all weekend long. However, I enjoyed the extra challenge. The trip was to Mammoth Cave National Park in south central Kentucky. For those of you who are not in the know, Mammoth Cave is the largest cave system in the world, with a beautiful national park full of amazing trails and places to go canoeing and all of your other favorite outdoor activities. This, of course, is on the surface level. Many locals know not to go on the north side of the park at night alone, or even in a small group. Quite a few people have gone missing over the years, and very seldom is it on the south side of the park. The park is split down the middle by the Green River, which stretches across the park from the east to the west, connecting Nolan Lake and Green River Lake, both of which being popular spots during the summer for camping. Everyone's uncle had seen a Bigfoot in these woods. Heck, I'm sure that they also shared a sandwich a time or two. I've never believed in the paranormal. I think it can all be explained away by logic and reasoning. Saw a ghost? Yeah, right, that's just your brain imagining it. Did that light turn off on its own? Sure. Might want to call the electrician to fix a crappy job the first electrician did while the house was being built. In saying that, I will admit that I do enjoy a good story, especially creepy ones found across the internet, especially those of the local urban legend across Kentucky of the Goat Man or the Barilla. For those of you who do not know what the Barilla is, it is a local legend in south central Kentucky. about an animal frequently seen at Native American burial grounds and local cemeteries at the edge of small towns. It's described as having short black/gray fur with a massive waist and even longer arms. It didn't get its name, Barilla, for nothing. Its head is being described as that of a large wolf with pointed ears, amber eyes, and a short, stubby snout. Some have described it more along the lines of your stereotypical werewolf would look. And for the Goatman, well, we've all heard a tale before. I don't think it needs any introduction. Anyway, back to the camping trip. I was going alone this time. I thought about bringing my son along, as he had just recently turned 13, and I felt more comfortable taking him on longer, harsher trips with minimal gear. He always seemed to enjoy camping, but this was out of his league. It was too cold and the trail was too harsh and unforgiving for anyone without proper experience. The trip itself was over the course of 2 days. The first was hiking up to the site, which was set on the highest point of the park. The next was, of course, a slow hike back, which, in all honesty, would be even more dangerous due to the rapid drop in elevation combined with the cold, slick mud and clay that would be found on the trail. I have always made sure to pack lightly on hiking trips like this to really push myself when it came to my survival skills. On this trip, I carried with me a small knife, 2 50-foot strands of 550 paracord, my tent, a sleeping bag, and some iodine tablets to purify the water of any harmful bacteria found in the water. A small flashlight, really only strong enough to illuminate 10 to 15 feet in front of me, and then, of course, a fire starter and duct tape. Overall, I packed more than I normally would for such a trip. However, with the recent birth of my second child a few months ago, I started to take less risks and packed more each time. For food, I brought with me a pack of beef jerky and some granola bars. That's really all I needed to feed my slim frame of 150 pounds at 5'11". Time came for me to leave for my trip. Getting into the truck, I felt a cold feeling wash over me, like a sixth sense telling me not to go on this trip, but I ignored it. I had already taken off work for 2 days. I would be gone, and I'm not about to waste the few precious vacation days I get each year. The drive itself should only take 3 hours, depending on the ferry still used by the park. The ferry was the quickest and easiest way to get across to the north side of the park without adding an extra 2 to 3 hours onto the drive. It was a common complaint to those who came on vacation from out of state. However, us locals usually took the chance to catch up on a new book or to double-check your gear in case we had forgotten to pack something while waiting for the ferry to reach the south side boarding dock. I was currently reading A Game of Thrones for the 3rd time. It took the ferry only 45 minutes to get back to the south side, but when the crew stepped off, they went to each of our vehicles to tell us, due to the increase in wind and with the currents being strong today, there would be no more rides across the water today. Anyone wanting to get across would have to go around and take the bridge across, the closest one being an hour-and-a-half drive away from the docks. This, at the time, had upset me. However, I understood why they couldn't risk the journey across to the other dock, so I went on my way. It was a fairly long and boring drive. There was no use in bringing my cell phone, due to there being no signal anywhere in the park. Even on the tallest peak of the park, you would get no signal. Yes, I know what people are going to say. You should still bring your cell phone when you're going camping. And to that I agree, but I hated the distraction of it. It always pulled my attention from nature, and I also just didn't want to deal with another piece of gear I would need to keep track of. Remember, in my mind, the lighter, the better. Originally, I had planned to get to the parking lot at the beginning of the trail by 9 a.m. However, it was now noon, and I only had about a good 7 hours of daylight left. This meant I wouldn't be able to make it to the campgrounds at the end of the trail by nightfall. This isn't the first time this has happened to me. However, I always hated it when it did. Hiking up the steep incline, even in perfect conditions at night, was dangerous and heavily advised against by park rangers, so I would have to make do and set up camp at the first area I could find after sunset started, and wake up early tomorrow and catch up on the 3 hours I had lost due to the ferry. The first 3 hours of the hike went perfectly. I saw a timber rattlesnake. If you ever visit the eastern United States, watch out for those. Not only are they big and strong for a snake, but they are also very, and I mean very, venomous. Once I had hit the 5-hour mark on my hike, I had run out of water for the second time and needed to refill my bottle, since this was the last chance you get until you make your way back down. I was going to go for another 30 minutes or so before I made camp. There is a nice clearing up ahead that, if you can get to it, then I will be in good shape and make up for the lost time tomorrow. While refilling my water, I noticed a paw print in the mud, 7 feet off to my left on the bank. It was undoubtedly a canine print left from where I had presumed was a coyote coming to stop for some water sometime in the last 24 hours. That's until I got closer to the print and realized just how massive it was. Now I'm a smoker. I smoke about a pack a day. And while this print was 2 packs long and slightly larger than 1 pack wide, let me translate that for all the non-smokers. Whatever made this print was massive. There is no way a coyote made this print, but there aren't any wolves in Kentucky. There's also no dog breeds I know of that have prints that large. Whatever made this was massive, and while I had no intentions on staying here by the river and waiting for its return, I hurried back onto the trail this time, with more pep in my step so I could hurry and set up camp to offer some protection if whatever that thing made that print was still around. I made it to the clearing and set up camp just as sunset was starting to fade into dusk. First, I quickly set up my tent and threw my sleeping bag inside, followed by starting a fire. If there was a predator out in those woods, the fire would keep them at distance, for a while at least, so I thought. I next used my 2 strands of 550 paracord and tied them around the campsite at knee level and act like a tripwire for anyone or anything coming to my campsite to give myself a few more precious seconds of time to react. I finally sat down and tore into the pack of jerky I had packed. This gave me some comfort and relaxation, as now I had some food in my stomach and a fire to keep me warm. Then I heard a snap. My blood went cold as my mind went a million miles an hour as to what could have made that noise. Was it a person? Could it just be some sort of animal like a deer just passing through? What if it was that creature that had made that print down back at the river? Whatever it was large and heavy, as I heard twigs snapping louder and louder as it drew closer. "Who's out there? Announce yourself." No answer came. "I have a gun and I will shoot if you do not announce yourself." It was a lie, however. It was a bluff that had gotten a response countless times over the years. However, still no answer came. Whatever was making these noises was heavy. It had to have been several 100 pounds for it to make twigs snap that loud, like they were bones being broken with each and every step. That's also when I noticed just how much distance the creature had covered in only a few seconds. Whatever it was, it could not be human. Its pace was too slow for the amount of ground covered, and the steps were too loud and powerful for it to be a person. Some time had passed before I heard anything else. The steps had stopped just outside of the light of my fire. Whatever this thing was, it was smart and understood to stay out of light where it could see me and I couldn't see it. And there we stayed for what felt like an eternity, unmoving, trying desperately to stretch the little bit of spare wood I had gathered to keep the fire going as long as possible. It was waiting for the fire to die out, but I wouldn't let that happen. I couldn't let this thing get its chance to attack me in the dark. I knew if it really wanted me, all it would have to do was come right up to the camp and have me for dinner, but it never came. Some time had passed, and the fire had come to a small, desperate final breaths of life when I decided to head into my tent, thinking the creature had moved on to choose another target. That's when I saw it, those awful amber eyes, cold without emotion. They struck utter fear into me. This creature was massive. It had to have been at least 8 to 9 feet tall. I couldn't see the body. It was far too dark, but those eyes, those cold, terrible eyes, will haunt me for the rest of my days. I still see them to this day, every night lying awake in my sleep. I quickly turned my flashlight on and saw the large, lanky frame of this creature. Its black, dark fur covered what was undoubtedly an impressive and horrifying amount of muscle for its build. That's when I realized the putrid stench that had come with it. In my fear, I had not noticed the foul smell of death and rot that followed this creature. It only took the smallest moment to react and drop down to all fours and let out the lowest, most awful growl I'd ever heard. It could be felt in my soul. The anger and hatred this thing possessed could only be described as pure evil incarnate. I quickly hurried into my tent and hid for the gruesome end that was about to come my way, praying not to any specific deity, but anyone or anything out there who could hear me. I did not want to die. I do not want to die. Please, God, save me. Don't let me die. I heard the creature approach right up onto my tent, sniffing and growling at me. I swear I don't think my heart had a beat a single time. What felt like hours had passed without a sound. Then it was gone. Its howls could be heard off in the distance, reminding me that I was lucky to not end up as its supper tonight. I didn't sleep for even a second that night. How could I? I had just experienced the face of pure evil, malice itself, given form into our world. I knew I shouldn't be alive, and that the only reason I did not die that night was by its choice, and that alone. When dawn broke, I exited my tent and found evidence of the creature all over my campsite. Pieces of fur, paw prints, and claw marks on nearby trees, just to name a few. This trend continued on the trail back to the car. I never made it to the end of the trail. As soon as I packed camp, I hightailed it out of those woods. I knew if I was to encounter that creature again, I would not be so lucky next time. When I got to the car, I threw my backpack into the back seat and hurried into the front seat of the car, not saying a word. I sat there in silence with my face in my palms. When I looked up, I saw its amber eyes staring at me, looking at me with a pleased expression on its face of terror and trauma it had caused me. This thing, it was intelligent. It wasn't after me to kill me or for sport. It was after me to make me suffer, like human suffering was a way of feeding. The look of pleasure on its face, that grin, with its long, terrible yellow teeth showing. God, why is such a creature allowed to exist in this world? What grave sin have I committed to be tortured by things of this existence? I started my car's engine and drove off, driving well over the speed limit. Every now and then, at a stop sign, I would swear I saw those amber eyes, but each time when I looked again, they were gone. When I got to the north side of the park's dock, I waited there patiently as the ferry slowly made its way back. When the crew finally came up to my car, they stopped and remarked how pale I looked, like I had seen a ghost. I knew they would not believe my experience, so I brushed it off as the cold weather had taken its toll. I rode home in silence, the radio was turned off, and I was left to my own thoughts, racing through my mind about that creature. When I arrived home late that night, my wife had already put our daughter to sleep. My son was off at some friend's house, playing some video games and having a good time. I sat there on the couch contemplating what had happened out there on the trip. I decided to head to bed soon after. When I opened the door, my wife had remarked that I had stunk and asked if I had been sprayed by a skunk. My blood ran cold. I smelled it too now, that awful putrid stench. I made sure not to make a face and dismissed her claim and went and took a shower. I had done some digging online and found out the creature was the Barilla. It had other names as well, like Dogman and the Beast of Bray Road. With that being said, guys, I will never head to Mammoth Cave National Park ever again, and I advise you guys not to as well, unless you want to have an experience of your own. If you do, just go in the daytime and have as many people with you as possible. Thanks for listening. All right, guys, what an absolute horrifying experience. We've heard of experiences coming out of Mammoth Cave, Mel's Hole, areas like that. Both two different places, two different sides of the country, but very interesting places and caverns at that. These places contain some of the most terrifying beings known to man. And a lot of information that you guys are going to hear tomorrow talks about caverns and what the universal government kind of did down there and what they still do. And man, I tell you what, I'm probably going to have nightmares tonight. Anyway, guys, thanks for supporting the channel. Your support's what makes this channel special and what continues to make it grow and go. Everyone, please stay safe, happy, healthy, and ever vigilant, keeping an eye on our children, our pets, our family, and friends. These creatures are real. They're out there. They are dangerous. Share this information with those you love and care about, and it may just help save your life someday. Until next time, never stop asking questions, and never stop searching for answers. God bless you all.